Chapter 3, Section 2.6, Domain and Range. In order to understand this section, we must understand what the definition of a domain is. Domain is all the x values, and the range is all the y values that are pertaining to a certain function or graph. In this particular example, we're looking at the graph, and what you want to do is you want to ask yourself these two questions when you're looking at domain. How far to the left on the x-axis does this graph go? And then how far to the right on this graph does the function go? So the answer to that is the furthest point, just bring it down, and it's at -3. And the furthest point to the right, bring it up, and it's at 6. So the domain for this would be -3, 6. Those are the furthest point to the left and furthest x value to the right. Now, let's look at the range. The questions that you need to look at range are this: how low does it go? And then how high does it go? And when you write domain and range, it's always the lowest comma highest. Okay, it's always lowest comma highest. And the reason that is because it's written in interval notation. Okay, so it's always smallest comma highest. So how low does it go? The lowest point's right here. So if we bring this over, it's at -4. The highest point, you would think it's over here, but no, it's right there. We bring this over, it's 6. So this graph, y values are between -4 and 6. Okay? You have to put a bracket because it includes those points. Now, let's look at this one. Domain. How far to the left? Well, this happens to be the furthest part to the left. I bring it down. It's -4. This happens to be the furthest point to the right. Now, let's take a look at this right here. There's an open dot and a closed dot. So at this point, it doesn't exist there, but it does exist at x equals 0 here. So it's, even though it looks to have stopped and not included, it picks it up and continues on. The only thing that you'd have to worry about is if this second one happened to be an open, then we would have a disconnect or discontinuity in my x-axis. So for this one, it would be -4 to 5. Now, let's look at the range. How low does it go? The lowest point happens to be here, which is -4. The highest point happens to be there, which is 3. So that would be -4, 3 with brackets. Okay. All right. So I want to look at this one. And we're going to graph them so you can kind of see them and kind of go from there. So clear. We're going to graph the first one, which is x squared. Okay, we're just going to hit graph. I don't want to make this. And now I want to do zoom 6 because I want a standard view, right? Now, I could do zoom fit if I wanted to, and it would, expand it on out. But what you have to understand is this particular function is a quadratic. So its domain will always be this, okay, from negative infinity to positive infinity, period. Okay, the range is what you need to kind of nail down, because when we're looking at this, there's a point right here that is the lowest point. Now, what we're going to do is, I know that 0, 0, okay, but I'm going to show you how to nail it exactly on the calculator. So second trace, and I'm going to go, that would be a minimum, that'd be a lowest point, right? So I'll hit 3, and what I'm doing is creating a left bound and a right bound, and I'm encapsulating the area that I'm looking for to find the lowest output. So I want to go to the left of it, hit enter. Now go to the right of it, hit enter. And not going to guess, I'm just going to hit enter. So the minimum, the lowest y value is 0. Okay, so what we do is, that would be 0 to infinity, right? Because this would go from, lowest point would be 0, 0, or 0 for range value. The highest point would be infinity. Now, let's look at the other. Hit this. The other one is 1 over x. So we're going to go y equals, so it'll be 1 divided by x. We hit graph. All right. So what we have to understand is, this is what it looks like. And these, what we have here, are called asymptotes. Okay, so it's not going to touch the x-axis, and it's not going to touch the y-axis. Okay, so how do you do that? Because see, it's going on for domain, it goes all the way to the left. Furthest point to the left is infinity. Furthest part to the right is positive infinity, but it just doesn't touch 0. If you look at a table, you see at 0 it says error there, so you can kind of see that. So graph again. So on this one, here's the domain you would have, and I'm going to write this out. In previous sections, we had to put commas. In this section, they want the correct notation, which is more of a union. So it would be negative INF to 0, parentheses, U, parentheses, 0 to IN, F. Okay? And then the same thing would be for the domain. The lowest point would be a negative infinity up to 0, and then 0 to infinity. Okay? So this concludes section 2.6, part 1's video.